The Flyers are still figuring out which player is here for the long term, which players are going to take them to that next level and stay on this roster when they want to regularly compete for the Stanley Cup. Hopefully, that's not too far away. But in doing so, some players might have to come and some players might have to go. And one of those players that might have to go and possibly soon is Owen Tippett. And according to recent rumors, a report by the Fourth Period's David Pagnotta, some teams could be already circling around the Flyers, poking at Danny Briere, asking, is Owen Tippett available? When could we get Owen Tippett? That player's signed for a long time. That would be nice to have in our top six. He's not in your top six. So that's where we are right now, is that there are teams kind of poking around, little tidbits, little nuggets of information, trying to see if Owen Tippett is available. I'm just going to read verbatim what Pagnotta said, and this is what he said, and this is on DFO Rundown Insiders Edition this past week. Pagnotta said, "We're going to see, I think, some teams poking around on Philadelphia to see what they want to do with Owen Tippett. We'll see how the season progresses. Nothing is imminent by any stretch. But I'm starting to get a bit of an inkling from a few teams out there that he's going to be a guy that some teams are going to target." Now, he has a limited no trade that kicks in July. This is his final year without any no trade protection. So maybe depending on how the Flyers do this season and depending on what his responsibilities and roles are, he may lock into a second line position or first line position for the full duration of the season, put up strong numbers, become a staple part of their core right now. But with guys like I mentioned before, like Forrester, with Michkov, obviously they've got Konechny and so on. Some of these guys take some of these spots and at least some of the ice time away from him. I can see Philadelphia at least listening on Owen Tippett. He repeats and repeats again, nothing imminent right now, but it makes sense. It makes total sense that the Flyers have a full bucket, a full surplus of wingers, and you already have Michkov and Travis Konechny on the roster. You have Tyson Forrester making that next level up. You have a Bobby Brink as a super skilled, high end like depth scorer. Like he's probably not going to be a top six guy, but him on your third line, that's a luxury. That type of player. Owen Tippett right now is kind of lost in the mix, especially with players like Porter Martone, who's going to be joining the Flyers at the end of his college season this year, hopefully, barring any catastrophe or injury or anything like that. With that in mind, and just like other prospects like Nikita Grubenkin, Denver Barkey, you're adding up Alex Bump. We didn't even mention Alex Bump. We expected him to be on this team, and he's not. So that's another winger. There's so many players, so there's only so many spots available that are in scoring roles. These players aren't going to be. You're not going to have Alex Bump on a fourth line. That's Grubenkin, you might, but you're not going to have like Denver Barkey and players of that ilk that have scoring potential play on your fourth line. So there's really only 6 spots available, and the Flyers already locked up 2 in Michkov and Konechny. You have Forrester, you have Brink. So Tippett again is on the outside looking in, and it makes total sense for teams to be circling around that and to understand that situation that Tippett is in, because he is signed until 2032 on this current deal that pays him $6.2 million. Now, when he signed that contract, when Danny Briere extended him that full 8 years, it was seen as like, okay, this is kind of paying market value for a player like him, a 25-ish goal scorer, a regular kind of presence on the power play, will get you 50 points, whatever. That's paying market value. Now with the cap going up into possibly 107 million as soon as next year, 120 in the future, you're seeing all these players suddenly get like $9-10 million like it's nothing. So Owen Tippett's locked in at 6.2. Even if you have him on your third line, that's like a great third liner and a great 20 goal scorer is probably making that. So if you have Tippett at 26, 27, 28, scoring 30, 35 goals potentially, then that's a great price to have him at. So I could understand what teams are doing. And if teams need a top 6 winger, and we could potentially go through possible teams like Pagnotta mentioned, the Canucks need one. Leafs have been looking for a top 6 winger. There's other Canadian markets that have Edmonton could even like use him. I don't know if the money works, but there's so many teams that could use a player like Tippett that it makes so much sense that teams are kind of poking around and prodding, and especially like Pagnotta mentioned, that his no trade production doesn't come up until July 1st, 2026. So the Flyers could do what they will, do whatever they want with him. Don't have to ask for that 10-team no trade list. And right now it seems like, barring any crazy season from the Flyers or a playoff hunt or crazy injuries or like Tyson Forrester not performing as well or Bobby Brink being moved or someone like that, then Owen Tippett could easily be traded by sometime this season or even before the draft or around the draft or something like that. There's signs that it makes so much sense that Tippett would be a player that is eventually on the move for the Flyers, if not even sooner. Now, what are teams getting in Tippett? We've already mentioned some of his attributes, but it's really like he is averaging around 25 goals the last 3 seasons in Philadelphia. Those are his 3 full seasons as a Flyer, averaging around 48 points, averaging like 200 shots. But his shooting percentage has been the deciding factor on why he's not seen as like a lock to be in this Flyers top six. There, he's only shooting 10.6% on all those shots, and it's he's so shot heavy and so shot volume heavy, but unfortunately, his shots miss the mark a whole lot of time. It's one of the frustrating points with Tippett's game, and from multiple fans and fans from every angle see that he just doesn't hit the net a whole lot. He's so shot heavy from mid range, but doesn't have that like elite Austin Matthews esque shot where he can consistently hit and score from that mid range. So you're going to see a lot of volume shooting. You're going to see a lot of um, streaking up the ice. You're going to see a lot of speed from him, and he has a big body at 6'4" or 6'2" rather. That he's not going to be afraid to kind of play up to that size. So it comes to a point of like there's a package and tools that are so enticing, and again, like you could totally see it. And if you're a Flyers fan, you probably like this moving on from Tippett is totally fine because we have so many prospects on the wing. We have so many higher priority players already playing up the lineup compared to Tippett. That moving on from a player like Tippett, it just it adds so much of like that's totally fine to do away with him and is frustrating at times. So like it's a player that I could see exploding somewhere else with a higher opportunity. Like if he's in Vancouver and playing next to like an Elias Pettersson if he comes back to his Selke Trophy winning ways. And like Brock Besser, Connor Garland, like insulated a little bit that he could just like come out of nowhere. And if he's like suddenly in Toronto and playing next to Matthew Nyes and Austin Matthews and like on that front line, he's probably going to score 40. Like it's the Flyers don't have the right environment and probably the space available to comfortably just let Owen Tippett do his thing at as much as he wants, and they don't also have the centerman or the right opposite wingers to factor in and foster that environment also where other teams could. So Danny Briere probably sees that, and they're not going to just suddenly just let him walk for nothing. They're not going to just like, here you go, whatever, give us a 4th-round pick for him, give us a 2nd and a 3rd or whatever, give us a Robert Hagen a 3rd pick. They see the value that other teams probably see in Tippett. So could Tippett be used as a main trade chip to help the Flyers on the blue line? Because that's a big issue that they have right now, particularly with the left side. Even with Cam York out, we saw how desperate and how desolate the blue line was. So if it takes one injury to suddenly have like Travis Sanheim playing half the game and you have no one else, and then you're banking on prospects like Oliver Bonk and Connor Amico and other like Spencer Gill potentially making an impact down the road, I think you need someone around Tippett's age and probably Tippett's like pedigree, but on defense, just to have that. So I wonder if a hockey trade's available or something like that. But um, speaking of defensemen on the move, there's also Pagnotta added a little bit of an inkling on a player that might be also the Flyers could be listening in on. Emil Andre has been moved back down to the AHL, and it's a little frustrating to see him play so well in his limited time on ice against the defending Stanley Cup champions Florida Panthers. But at the same time, it's playing the depth chart. Your Noah Juulsen's here, I guess. You have Adam Yinning doing his thing, I guess. You have Zamula still here, and Andre was the easy choice because he was still waiver exempt. But now I'm sure teams are kind of checking in on him and seeing Andre's not really having a spot in the lineup, and especially that the Flyers' excuse for not keeping Andre around is probably because he's only 5'9", and again, that doesn't make him a super enticing trade chip or a trade target for a team. But he's shown enough at the NHL level, especially during his first stint last season, that he could regularly be like a number 4 or 5 defenseman, and especially if he's surrounded by larger players, that there are opportunities. And it's again like Tippett, like the Flyers don't, with Jamie Drysdale and Cam York already taking up the mold of a smaller defenseman, and the Flyers just don't want to add Andre to that mix. If a blue line somewhere else, like for instance Toronto, Morgan Riley's the only puck mover on that line, on that blue line rather, that you could see Andre getting added and just be like, he's your secondary puck mover next to Chris Tanev, Jack McCabe, Brandon Carlo. You have big bodies to insulate him and provide an environment where Andre could do his thing and not have the coaching staff worried every single shift because every single pairing has a smaller guy on it. Now, that's basically just a roundup of every Flyers trade rumor that's out, and we're only 3 games of this season, so I'm sure there's much more trade rumors to come. Please like this video, subscribe down below. Broad Street Hockey is going to be with you throughout the whole Flyers season. Read broadstreethockey.com, listen to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. And it doesn't take much to support independent hockey content like this. It's just us going. There's no venture capitalists or money hungry guy that's taking all the profits. It's whoever you're listening to, whoever you're watching, whoever you're reading is getting that contribution. So help us out. broadstreethockey.com. BSH forever.